Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
In a rare move, Golani Brigade soldiers raided a Palestinian wedding in Hebron in the West Bank on Friday, and according to Army Radio, the purpose of the raid was to search for illegal weapons. To that end, soldiers found a rifle and ammunition that Israel says was intended to be used in an attack in the West Bank. But during the raid, the guests at the wedding threw stones at the troops who, in return, responded with riot dispersal means. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the West Bank, the Shin Bet security services revealed this week a Hamas recruitment program allegedly initiated to find and train militants in building bombs and carrying out attacks in Israel, specifically within the Green Line. The recruits were also reportedly instructed to target public places such as malls and hotels. What's worse, the Hamas terror group has been communicating with these recruits through messages passed by Gazan medical patients who are allowed into Israel for life-saving treatments. All this and more was originally revealed when Hamas terrorist Awis Rajoub was arrested a few months ago. Rajoub was recruited and sent to a medical warehouse to pick up a cell phone for communicating with his operators in Gaza, and later he met with a Gazan woman who was accompanying her sister to Israel for cancer treatments. She gave him the phone's password and instructions on how to use it, and it was this way that he received videos on how to make remote detonated explosives. He even held video calls with Hamas explosive experts. The plan was to carry out an attack in early October, but thankfully it was foiled long before anything could materialize. A weapons shipment coming from Iran for Hamas in Gaza has just been seized in the Sinai by the Islamic State-affiliated terror group in Egypt. The shipment included advanced Russian-made weapons like the Kornet laser-guided anti-tank missile system and other GPS-capable items, and according to a security source in Kuwait, it's also the largest shipment ever seized by ISIS. Tensions between the Islamic State and Hamas have been escalating for a while now, however, with the Sinai Islamic State commander currently refusing to work with Hamas in returning the shipment. And then last year, there was an alleged suicide bomber linked to Islamic State that killed a Hamas guard in the southern border of Gaza and Egypt. Then finally, earlier this year, Islamic State declared war on Hamas and released a video executing a Hamas member who allegedly smuggled weapons to the Gaza terror group. While in related news, given all these uproars in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, Israel is now in the middle of conducting a major 10-day drill to practice fighting in both southern and northern fronts simultaneously against Hamas, Hezbollah, and any other threat. The exercise includes ground forces in cooperation with the Israeli Air Force, and practices will cover combat zones in both open and urban areas. Ground troops will include the Maglan, Egoz, and Duvdevan units. Czech President Milos Zeman is scheduled to begin his visit in Israel today, where he and Prime Minister Netanyahu are expected to inaugurate a new Czech cultural center in Jerusalem. It's additionally thought that Zeman will repeat his vow to move the Czech embassy to Jerusalem as soon as possible while addressing the Knesset tomorrow, though the move isn't entirely up to him. But the biggest news now centers around reports that the opposition parties in government plan to hold a vote of no confidence against the coalition during Zeman's visit, despite promising not to just last week. The vote, organized by the Meretz party, was originally postponed when the coalition ensured its majority, as well as to not interfere with President Zeman's visit. But then, after Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein canceled an anti-settlement conference called Hebron First, scheduled for Monday, opposition parties threatened again to instigate the vote. Edelstein is accusing the opposition of, quote, choosing to break agreements and cause a diplomatic embarrassment, end quote, adding that the updated schedule will not be changed. Reports show that the opposition has been aggressively trying to seize on the coalition's moment of weakness since at least last week, however, as former Prime Minister Ehud Barak met with opposition party leaders Tzipi Livni and former Defense Minister Ya'alon last Thursday to supposedly discuss a united move on the government. Still, it's unclear how successful a move like this would be after last week's first attempt, and as of yet, the vote of no confidence is still just a threat and not a scheduled reality. Last but not least, the climate is on everyone's mind after a weekend of heavy storms left many parts of the country inaccessible or dramatically flooded. Saturday night, a Haifa resident was pulled out of his car by firefighters after he became trapped and submerged in a flooded underpass, the same place where a 74-year-old truck driver died in much the same circumstances 2 years ago. In fact, roughly 15 millimeters of water rained down on Haifa alone this weekend. But that's not all. Israeli road authorities also shut down large segments of Route 90 near the Dead Sea and Route 234 in the Negev on Saturday over fears of flash flooding. Both directions on both roads were closed for several hours. But the inclement weather also comes just a day after the United States released its federally mandated climate change report, essentially saying that this is as good as it's going to get. The White House report, which comes out every 4 years, was published somewhat under the radar on Friday as it describes the expected effects of global warming, which the Trump administration denies. And the effects aren't pretty. Brenda Eckwertzel, the report's author, said in a statement that while mitigation and adaptation efforts have been greatly expanded, they still fall far below the bar for what we'll need to face the threat of global climate change. And that even if drastic measures are taken, which is unlikely, some of the damage is already done. Therefore, the world can only expect that dangerously high temperatures, rising seas, deadly wildfires, torrential rainfalls, and devastating hurricanes will only get worse, and their costs will mount dramatically. The fourth National Climate Assessment was produced by cooperation between over 300 independent and government scientists.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.